right, so today we're talking about financial noise. The headlines are out there, the TV is waiting for you, your phone is waiting for you every morning. There's newspapers maybe arriving on your doorstep. There is news and headlines everywhere, right? And they're
Right.
all looking for the most sensational topic to grab your attention. And we love to have clients that are well informed. It certainly doesn't pay to be ignorant. You want to know what's happening in the world, but how do you filter that? We're going to talk today about what impact that has to you personally as you consider your finances and how to kind of navigate through the financial noise.
And it's great. We can start by what happens if you don't filter, right? Before we get to how to filter, but like if you don't filter, and I mean, headlines more and more are clickbait, they're emotional, they're meant to grab your attention. They may or may not tell the whole story. They may or may not have a bias in them, depending what news sources you're reading. And even if it's good material, even if it's good content, your brain is now swimming with not just what you're doing in your day, but it's considering what's happening, on some continent or something in Asia or something in Africa or something in Europe. Like you're holding all of these details because they're sensational as what just happened. And I think for most people, they're trying to make sure they're not missing it. They're trying to make sure they're not doing something foolish. They're trying to make sure they're well informed. But man, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of uncertainty. Maybe they're a business owner and they're considering, how much stock they should order. And all of a sudden they're considering what's going on in Europe, which may be entirely unrelated to that, but it is a news article, And so I think this news, I feel, can become overwhelming to clients, whether they're business owners, whether they're retired, whether they're just investors, whether they're building their life. Like the amount of news and almost like the fire hose that it comes at us can be so overwhelming. It just produces, for many people, anxiety and uncertainty.
Yeah. And so I understand that person that just walks away from it. I don't want to be informed anymore. It's just overwhelming.
Well, you're going from crisis to crisis, right? You're micromanaging your daily activity, and if you bring that into your portfolio or into your business, you're going to drive people crazy, and probably most likely yourself, because you're not making long-term decisions. So you have to be able to sort out that information which is important to you. If you're a business owner and if you own a restaurant and all of a sudden the cost of meat goes up 20%, that affects you. That is a micro event. And the question is that going to affect my suppliers? Is that going to affect my ultimate profitability? How much of my service do I have that meat is involved with it? Those kinds of things. That's
Let's talk
important.
about labor here in California and the price for minimum wage workers for fast food restaurants. Like we have a good friend of ours that owns a chain of fast food restaurants here. That was a major impact, right? That was a news source that he needed to pay attention to because it was going to have a huge impact on his company going forward. So filter is what you're talking about.
Your brain should filter out those things that are most important. I'll turn on it on the news, and I just want to get the current weather because we're going to be traveling today, and I want to make sure, where is the rain at? When's it going to stop? Is it going to continue tonight? That affects me. That's micro information that affects my activity today. But if it's raining in Northern California or up in Washington, that doesn't affect me. And why should I be concerned about that, right?
But
it just
let's not forget,
it clogs up my thinking. So anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not forget though, you're right, like in filtering like what's relative and what's not relative. But I'm always reminded that our brain wants to be right. And so if you have some existing presumptions, biases, fears, concerns, whether we're talking politics, economics, local politics, whatever you're thinking, I always knew this was going to happen. You're going to keep seeking information until you are validated. And so this is a hard filter to set because we all have a bias and most of the time we're unaware of it. And so that is something that I would recommend as we come to various news sources is always kind of checking in with, am I just looking for something that just validates what I already think is right? Or am I truly open to all the information?
Right, for sure.
And I think there's even a mindset for many people, some of the information is actionable information. This will affect my investments. This will affect my career prospects. This will affect my business. It's things that you're looking for because you want to use them to make a choice. There's also
Are you saying infect or affect? This will infect? It sounded like you said infect.
No, affect. Yeah, it will impact.
Affect. Okay.
Yeah,
But you
it'll
could see how both would be true. Can this infect, like, as a negative, right? Like how it
like a
can.
virus, a brain
Yes,
virus. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So I think there's things that will affect what you're doing. There's also things that you just want to know because they're interesting. And I think it's important for some people to really look at the difference. There's times where you will want to know something just because you want to know it. It's interesting. There's other times where you need to consider, is it relevant to what I'm doing? And I think you can have both. We don't have to close ourselves off. But I think one initial filter is this something that I want to use for my personal choices and to make decisions with, or is it just good to know?
Yeah, again, I think, for example, if you're investing and all of a sudden there is a major tax change, that's an important bit of information. You want to sit down and understand how that affects you. Is that going to be something that is negative, or is there something there positive? So again, that's a micro event that happened, and it's just a matter of determining what is the most effective. In other words, what has the most impact on you, right? Positive or negative?
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the hidden costs of noise, right? So if we are just paying attention to all the noise floating at us, I think oftentimes individuals can become stuck in kind of analysis paralysis. When we're talking about financial noise and those who are constantly paying attention to it, but to the point where it's unhelpful and unuseful, there are some triggers to keep an eye out for, right? So if you're an individual that's constantly tuning into what the markets are saying and all the headlines, it's okay to be informed, but where are those causing anxiety, distraction, or where are those taking you away from action, right? So you're stuck in the kind of analysis paralysis. And we find this often with some of our clients, and some that come to mind right now are those that we call survivors. So whether they've stepped into a large inheritance or they've lost their spouse or partner that they used to manage their finances with, and now they're doing it on their own, that is a place of vulnerability because they're trying to learn. And so they're out there seeking information, and they don't get a little bit of information. They just get an absolute overwhelming amount of information, not to mention news headlines and everything else. So what are some recommendations, things that we walk through with our clients that are in that situation?
I think that the first filter, there's a few filters the way we kind of talk about it. The first filter I would say is the source. Is this a credible source? There's things that show up on Facebook or Instagram that are, or YouTube, some influencer somewhere. It's worth taking a moment to look at their credentials or their experience or where they came from. And if their job is to get eyeballs on their page, eyeballs on their video, and it's just a marketing type thing, well, I would be very skeptical. Are they trying to sell me something? Are they just trying to promote what they're doing? So first is the source. If it's a valid news article, a news source, then that's the first filter of where did this come from?
And I think you can determine when you listen to somebody whether or not it is a thoughtful delivery of information. It shows their analysis back, so it goes back to your comment, Jeremiah, about the source, but also how it starts to deliver. If it's 3-second bites, I don't trust that at all. I don't trust that at all. But I'll sit down and listen to somebody that gives me a 30-minute analysis of a particular circumstance, whatever that is, because there's a thoughtful process of going through it. And you can go back and check the person and determine whether or not that person is credible, right?
Yeah.
So
So
again,
consider the
making those
source.
decisions for yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
consider the source, consider the context, and then the last filter, going back to that idea, is how does this apply to you? It might be something that frankly it doesn't apply to you, but it applies to a close friend or a family member, right? Oh, that's an interesting point. I'm going to bring that up with my friend. I reviewed the big beautiful bill, and for those who are going to purchase a new vehicle, they might want to consider an American made vehicle. This might be helpful to them. Or I have a friend that's receiving Social Security. There's some changes to the tax implication. Right? So can consider also and filter, does this have an impact on my financial plan? And I think the precursor to this is, do I have a financial plan that has been built with confidence? Do I understand that the person managing my financial plan has a clear understanding of what my goals are, what my investment goals are, my appetite for risk, so that I'm not constantly trying to check back and tune up and make these minor tweaks? That causes a lot of stress and anxiety and over communication, and maybe something that's not necessary. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing I would share.
Some of those filters, so we have, consider the source. Is this relevant to me? I think the ones I'd add on top of that even is to say magnitude. Is this really important? Like, the fact that, that something you're reading, it may impact you, it may be relevant, but it might also just be a minor thing. Then the last
Hmm.
one that I think of is just the timing. Is this something that needs to affect me now? There are so many conjectures about what the U.S. economy is going to do, by 2030. And those are important. Those are interesting. But do they need to be impacting someone's thoughts today? There's a lot of timeline difference. There's a lot of magnitude difference that's going to happen between now and 2030. And so I think there's those filters as well to say, is this something important now? And all the more when you get to your personal life. Like we've had a number of clients that we talk deeply about Social Security when they're 61. And we know this is not a relevant conversation for a couple of years at best, and likely for a number of years down the road, but they still want to know about it. And so it's still important to be informed. It's still important to be there. But I think there's this, and Laura, to your comment, without a plan, without some sort of overarching understanding of where you're heading, I think there's this constant concern that I need to pivot. I need to do something
Hmm.
different. I'm going to make a foolish choice. I need to avoid something. And they're constantly almost taking, we find clients when they first come to us, they've been constantly taking almost their whole life, their whole investments, their whole plan, and ready to pivot the whole thing based on the most recent information they heard that week. And
Yeah.
man, that is stressful. That is difficult. But to have a set plan to say, this is where we're headed over the next 10, 20 years. These are the income
Yeah.
sources we're going to use. Getting that laid out allows you then to look at these other things and say, okay, is this relevant to me? Is this have a magnitude impact? Is this the right timing to worry about that? And if it's not, wow, the freedom just to set that aside and say, this doesn't matter right now. I'm going to stick with my plan. I'm going to focus on what's ahead of me can be so powerful.
Yeah, again, I think the
Absolutely.
question is what can you do to improve the outcome? And oftentimes you go through the list, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. I mean, it's a lot of things you just cross off because for you to improve your outcome is just to continue on the course. You have a goal
Hmm.
to get to wherever you're supposed to go, just go there. That's what we do with our
Mm,
clients. We help them make smart decisions about their money. And oftentimes people forget about all the different things that involves investing. And we just say, no, this is your course. This is what you do. And again, going back to earlier comments, the biases often, I can tell within 30 seconds when a client starts to talk to me and they start saying things, I can tell you where they're getting their information from. I can tell
Hmm.
you who they're listening to, what they're reading. And my job as an advisor is to be aware of all that, but yet
Right.
make a realistic decision about that information that's coming out.
So I love this and where we're guiding this next step of our conversation because here we are, three professionals that work in the financial services industry, and we have to filter the information coming at us, and let's not forget about the fact that all of our information that's fed to us are based on logarithms and little cookies that we've left here and there. So the information that we're getting already pushed to us is
Wait a
biased
minute. I
in
thought
some
dessert was
way.
coming later.
Are you hungry? Are you hungry already? I
Yeah,
know
well,
I
for
am.
maybe.
But, I think this is interesting because as we were preparing for this time, the three of us were talking about like, well, how do you purposefully filter the information coming at you? What news sources do you watch? When do you watch? How do you consume the information? Ultimately, how does that impact the work that you do and you personally? So I'm going to pick on you first, Dad. What do you do during the day?
When I wake up, from the very start as far as
Yeah.
information?
How do you
Yeah, I mean,
filter the news source and
I
headlines and information coming
I
at you?
I turn the TV on and I turn basically to CNBC because that gives me what the market's doing, and then it gives me some feedback, but then I get the Wall Street Journal and I start reading through the Wall Street Journal. I also have other resources. Ed Yardeni is somebody who comes out on a weekly basis with commentary. I love his charts. He's written a book, How to Predict the Markets. I think that he's very thoughtful, and not to say that he knows it all, and he'll be the first one to tell you that he doesn't. And then I go through analysis saying what's at risk, what is not at risk. And I always have as we get older, and we do this for our clients, we put more and more money in a safe harbor. So in case something does go down, they're not forced to sell. I do that with myself. I have money set aside, and so the income that I'm enjoying right now at this stage in my life, it's not going to be jeopardized by me making some stupid choices. We've had clients walk in where the wife has said, "I don't trust my husband because he's lost all this money because he's day trading or
Yeah.
whatever he's doing."
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that is a real concern. Anyway, so you're asking what I do every morning. I try to ground myself with the current information. What out there
Yeah.
is going to affect me, right?
And does it truly have an impact on your clients, or is it just a good point of information? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for macroeconomics. I'm looking for big picture thoughts. You know, when Trump said he wants to go after Greenland and he wants to buy it or he wants to have it brought under United States rule and regulations, I sit back and think, okay, what is he talking about? What is he doing?
Mhm.
Why is he taking that posture? And then you just let it kind of filter down. I don't,
Right.
again, a lot of political stuff is almost like some of the influencers on the web. It's just boom, they're trying to hit you with something. I think that's oftentimes that's what politicians do.
And what do you say to clients who call that are in a panic or worried about something that they heard that's going on politically? What's kind of a common response that you would give them?
I compare the current conversation that we're having right now with past conversations that have happened. So I'm a big history buff, so I try to go back in time. So this is what
Mhm.
happened, and I go back into the 1800s prior to Civil War. I go into even the Revolutionary War and the conflict. And as we go through, very seldom has our democracy been smooth and steady. It has been messy. And
Yeah.
still at the end of the day, we are the biggest and the best economy in the world because we're free enterprise and we have rule of law. Ultimately, rule of law will start to engage and it will
Mhm.
stop the abuse. But more importantly, you've got companies, the public companies. Most investors don't realize how important it is for the board of directors and the shareholders to name somebody and appoint them to run the company. And if they don't make a
Mhm.
profit, they don't run it well, they're out. And so
Mhm.
we have the advantage of investing across a broad category of companies, literally thousands. So that
Mhm.
makes a lot easier than trying to focus on one particular company or
Yeah.
one particular thing like gold or silver or whatever.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that
I
bad?
love that.
No, I think it's good, but I think again, you try to get your focus on the broader picture horizon. Don't get lost in the conflict, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think for me, just to chime in, and then Jeremiah, I know you have a lot to share on this. I like to see both sides of the picture. I've always have. And so I like to make sure that I'm watching both sides of the news story, so to speak, right? And if I can't just readily find it, I want to go seek it out. And I know that I'm doing this successfully because even yesterday I got one of those political text messages where they were asking me the question, "Are you Republican or Democrat?" I'm all, "Yes." They're still confused. So I like to read both sides of the story. I want to know the full story. I want to know the two arguments. I want to know the two different perspectives. I love to dissect the arguments. I think this was the part of me that wanted to study literature in college because I like the syntax and the foundation of an argument, right? And what's their approach and what's the strategy being taken? I like that. So I can really sink my teeth into that. And for me, then the mindset is curiosity. And so,
I
so
think
I
that's a
love to
great
ask,
to be more curious is just to get a better sense of what's going on.
right? I love to ask a lot of questions. And so, even if our clients come in and ask about a specific topic that's bothering them, oftentimes I do respond with a question. Well, what do you think about that? Or where did you find that news source? Or have you read this? Or what do you think about this perspective? Just to kind of drive out that mindset of curiosity versus fear and anxiety. So,
Yeah. I think
Jeremiah,
a
what do
big
you
piece,
think?
yeah, wrap up the bits. I think the biggest filter I have first is just where it's coming from. Like, I don't get news from Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. I try to avoid those as far as news sources. The hard part is those are active, they're quick, but often those are bite sized, fast food snacks as far as data goes. There's a few news, sources I like to follow that are a little more just this is what happened, and then others that are this is the deeper story of this is why and this is how it affects you. And I think they're both relevant. I like, so example, there's Reuters is one that often just has the facts. This is what happened. And then there's other articles like the Wall Street Journal or other ones that you can dive into. Well, then try and analyze why, what the impact is, what's the outcome going to be. And then there's deeper ones that we have access to a number of economists that we get to sit down with every quarter and have robust conversations. And I love that moment to be able to ask, hey, here's the things we're aware of. How are these impacting the economics? What's the real analysis behind this? Where is this heading? So, for me, I guess I try to use the things you get through social media as just interesting things, but nothing I'm making any choices on. But the larger
Hmm.
analysis of deeper articles. To me, I try and stay informed.
Yep.
But
It's nuggets to
it's a
chew
lot.
on, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in for anybody, and I think the outcome of a lot of this is you can let the tides of information sway you. One of my favorite quotes, I think this guy named Nate Silver. He said, "If more information was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six packs." And the push of that is that it's not just one.
Wait, you're not? Oh man.
I mean, I mean, right. But it's a great highlight of, some people are so driven to get more information. They think that is going to be the thing. There's a moment where more input is not what's needed. It's
Yeah.
thoughtful consideration and action. And Randy, you said it earlier. I think some of the best choice is rather than pivoting and readjusting your portfolio, 15 times during the year, is rather just to say, this is what I'm doing for this year. I'm going to stay focused on it. I'm going to stay consistent, and I will analyze in 6 months, or I will analyze in 1 year. And not being so fearful that you're going to miss this little thing, but looking for the big lines of consistency.
Yep,
I
for
love that
sure.
I just want to add on about more information. A part of my curiosity, kind of the negative side of it, could be that I can just collect information, and move into that kind of analysis paralysis. Well, let me just look for more information. Wait, I don't quite have the perfect answer. I don't quite feel right in this answer.
Mm.
And I love a friend of ours, Chad Willardson, says action takers are money makers. So there's a risk in taking action, even in small steps and big steps. But at a certain point, once you've collected enough information, then it's time to take action. So anyways, to our listeners, this is just the reminder to filter the information coming at you. Make sure that you're keeping kind of a sober mindset regarding how that actually impacts you personally. And hopefully this is inspiring in terms of a new way to process all the news and all the headlines coming at us every day.
Until next week, folks, may you grow in wisdom and knowledge. Thank you for listening.
We have a few more things to let you know about before we go. Podcast reviews really help us to serve more people and get this information into the hands of the people who need it. Please leave us a review. Even if it's not 5 stars, we welcome the feedback.
And we invite you to let us know what topics you would like to hear more about, or what would benefit the people in your life who you're closest to. We have more resources online. Those resources are designed to help you share this great information easily with people in your life. To access those resources, please visit tricordadvisors.com.
Often we hear from clients that they wish they had talked to us sooner. If that's you, we'd be thrilled to see how financial planning can benefit your life. Email us at contact@tricordadvisors.com or simply click on the link in the show notes.
This show was produced by Graham Gardner at Model FA. Find out more about how to create a podcast for your financial planning business by visiting modelfa.com. We love creating content that's useful, resourceful, and maybe even a little entertaining. We want to make this mega universe of financial topics and advice applicable and helpful to your life.
Remember, at Tricord Advisors, we are your future's best ally.